Hello. So today what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at a compare-contrast essay. This one actually happens to have way more contrast than comparisons, but we're comparing two early humans, and what we're trying to do is take a look at how they feel like a more successful essay and a less successful essay. And so we've got two early humans, and we're trying to come up with some sort of argument that we're going to make. We've got little bits of proof that we're going to look at. This is not like a very thorough research essay. This is based off of a little activity we did in class where we just look at a whole bunch of different early humans, and we're trying to just make an argument based off of two of them. So we're not citing any research or any facts the way you would in like a research essay, but we're still kind of using arguments and examples. So I've got an emerging essay, a developing essay, a proficient, and an extending one, so that hopefully you can feel the difference between them, so that when you're writing an essay, you're like, oh, right, mine feels more like that one, and then you can see the difference between them. So let's read. Emerging. And by the way, you're going to notice with this emerging essay, it's going to sound very slang. It's going to sound very spoken. A lot of essays that are beginning essays just sound as though someone's talking, but not in like an impressive speech kind of talking way, in kind of more of just like a walking down the road, just hanging out chat kind of way. So we've got a lot of spelling mistakes. We've got not the best punctuation, and it's very informal. That means it's very just chatting with like friends conversation. So let's start. So I'm going to compare Paranthropus boisei, and by the way, I don't know how to say these guys' names, but I'm just throwing it out there. So I'm going to compare Paranthropus boisei with Homo habilis. Both of these guys are really old, so they're kind of like a mix of gorilla or chimpanzee or something and a human, but I'm not really sure how. So I'm going to talk about how Paranthropus boisei is different and also the same as Homo habilis. So boisei lived about 2.3 to 1.2 million years ago. Habilis lived 2.4 million to 1.4 million years ago. So they lived at kind of the same time, so it's funny to compare them. I think that the habilis guy was maybe better at stuff, like tools. The guy's name is literally Homo habilis, the handyman. So he's going to be really handy. The other guy's name means the nutcracker man, so he was probably not really that handy. Another thing is habilis homo, so I did that intentionally so you could like see that sometimes we get our names wrong. Habilis homo seemed to eat meat, and I love meat, like chicken and beef. I don't know how the boisei guy ever got through life without meat. I know that he ate nuts and other stuff, but meat always wins. Also, Homo habilis man had a bigger brain, so he's probably way smarter, even if the boisei one was bigger. So there's actually some good stuff about this essay. We've got some interesting facts, like when they lived. We got some other interesting facts, like what their names mean. We've got the fact that Homo habilis, he's known for his tool making. What we don't have, though, is we don't have a lot of organization, and we don't have a lot of convincing arguments. We have the beginning of arguments, like just a teeny tiny peek at an argument, but then they run away and they don't even finish off the argument. So we've got some good and bad. Let's take a look at the developing essay. It looks more organized. It may not be, but it looks it. Typically, when we have an essay, you want to see like an introduction, you want to see 3 body paragraphs and a conclusion, and that's what we have here. Really, they're not actually saying that much more than the emerging essay, but they're doing it in a more organized way that is easier to follow. So let's read. I'm going to compare Paranthropus boisei with Homo habilis. They are both early humans, but Homo habilis seems like he's better. First things first, Paranthropus boisei lived about 2.3 to 1.2 million years ago. Homo habilis lived 2.4 million to 1.4 million years ago. This is kind of neat because they lived at roughly the same time, but had some differences as well as similarities. The first thing that makes them different is their names. Homo habilis means the handyman, and Paranthropus boisei means the nutcracker man. The second thing is how they eat different food. Paranthropus boisei ate tough foods like roots and nuts, but Homo habilis ate leaves, plants, and some animal tissues. Homo habilis ate some meat, but Paranthropus boisei did not. The third thing is that Homo habilis had a bigger brain and a smaller body. Paranthropus boisei had a bigger body and a smaller brain. So Homo habilis was smarter, but Paranthropus boisei was probably stronger. In conclusion, Homo habilis was better because he had a better name, he ate some meat, and was probably smarter. So let's talk about this. one of the things that was done really well here is organization. All of the ideas have a little home and they're stuck in their little compartment home. So that part is great. What is not happening here is there's actually not a lot of arguments. There's not a lot of explaining. So we tend to have a lot of facts, and it sounds more like a laundry list than a discussion. So before we move on, one other thing I want you to show is that in a formal essay, you don't have I. You're welcome to have we, but the minute you have I, it's a big no-no. So you're going to notice in the next essays, I just kept this a little zoomed out so you can see it's a little bit longer, but still I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs here, and in here I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but these look more substantial. They look meatier. It doesn't mean they're more correct. They are more correct. But typically when you have more writing, you're probably just going to happen to have more stuff in there. So the length of the essay doesn't necessarily make it better, but there's a strong correlation there, I would think. So this one is proficient. This is what I would expect a grade 6 or 7 student could write. And the only difference between the proficient and the extending is the proficient doesn't do it in the smoothest words, and they don't always finish off the explanation or the argument. So there's definitely examples, there's arguments, but in this one, they just take it that one step further so that it is explicitly clear. Here, it's mostly clear. It's clear, but it's not necessarily to the point where someone would totally understand on the first read through what the argument was and why it's important. Over here, hopefully after the first read through, the person would be like, yep, I hear what you're saying. That's a great argument. I could be out to lunch. Maybe I'm wrong, but let's read. There's more style. Again, when we compare the proficient back to the developing, this one has a little bit more style. Do you see how here I'm starting with a quote, whereas this one, it was just, I'm going to do this. And here it's kind of like a little fancy introduction. Over here, our fancy little introduction is even longer. Like it starts here and it goes down to, start at the top and it goes down to about here. So you can see this one has no fancy introduction. This one has a couple words, and this one has almost 3 lines. So that's kind of the difference, but let's read. Some humans are better suited to their environment than others. It is the intention of this essay to compare Paranthropus boisei with Homo habilis. Paranthropus boisei lived about 2.3 to 1.2 million years ago. Homo habilis lived 2.4 million to 1.4 million years ago. Because they lived during a similar time, it makes it interesting to compare them. We will look at the following 3 things to compare: their identity, their diet, and their body size. This essay is going to argue that Homo habilis evolved more useful traits than Paranthropus boisei. The name of an early man gives us a clue about who he was. It is important to look at how these 2 early humans are named. Homo habilis means the handyman, and Paranthropus boisei means the nutcracker man. Homo habilis must have used a lot of tools, or primitive technology, to be named the handyman. On the other hand, Paranthropus boisei was only named the nutcracker man because of his massive face. His best defining feature was that he had huge facial eating muscles, not that he was smart or skilled. Homo habilis is more likely to survive because he can use tools. We are what we eat. It is important to analyze how the diet of the early humans contributed to their ability to survive. Paranthropus boisei ate tough foods like roots and nuts, but Homo habilis ate leaves, plants, and some animal tissues. Homo habilis ate some meat, but Paranthropus boisei did not. This means 2 things. First, Homo habilis had a wider diet, meaning that he could eat a greater variety of food if food is scarce, meaning that he won't go hungry. Second, Homo habilis, if he is eating meat, means that he is more of a predator than prey. This means that he already has a survival instinct built into him that maybe Paranthropus boisei did not. Homo habilis has both fight or flight, but Paranthropus boisei only has flight. Size does not always matter. It is important to examine how the 2 early humans are physically different. Homo habilis has a bigger brain, 36 to 43 cubic inches, compared to Paranthropus boisei, 29 to 33 cubic inches. Homo habilis had a smaller build, about 71 pounds, compared to Paranthropus boisei, which is 75 to 108 pounds. Homo habilis was also much smaller, 3 foot 3 inches, compared to Paranthropus boisei, 4 foot 6 inches. This means that Homo habilis had a bigger brain, while Paranthropus boisei had a bigger body. This means that Homo habilis was smarter and probably in a better position to hunt or challenge Paranthropus boisei, who is physically bigger, but not able to outsmart Homo habilis. In conclusion, Homo habilis was better suited to his environment to survive and evolve. Homo habilis likely had more sophisticated tools, a more robust diet, and was smarter. This seems like Homo habilis likely evolved, while Paranthropus boise was not able to compete and survive. So, the extending essay. All I did for this essay is I literally took the exact same stuff that was written here in the proficient essay. I added in some nicer transitions, and I changed the words to sound more sophisticated. At times, I added in a little bit more explanation, but the rest of it is the same. The ideas, the arguments are the exact same. It's just said better. So let's read. Oh, and by the way, I'm starting with a quote just to kind of set the tone so that it helps make my thesis statement make sense. So, it is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is the most adaptable to change. Charles Darwin could not have been more accurate. Millions of years ago, several early humans occupied the same geographical area. Some emerged victorious in the struggle for existence, while the rest did not. Paranthropus boise lived about 2.3 to 1.2 million years ago, while Homo habilis lived 2.4 million to 1.4 million years ago. These two early humans coexisted, but which one was the most adaptable to change? It is the intention of this essay to argue that Homo habilis was better suited to adapt to change compared to Paranthropus boise. To investigate this issue, we will examine their identity, their diet, and their physical differences and similarities. Our differences can often help us to better understand the ways in which we fail to evolve similarities. Differences in naming practices help us to understand what each human was known for and how they excelled. Homo habilis means the handyman, due to the many tools that were found near the fossils. Paranthropus boise is nicknamed the Nutcracker Man, due to its massive jaw structure and facial disc, which give it chewing power unlike other early humans. Homo habilis was named after its unprecedented tool usage, while Paranthropus boise was named for its unmatched chewing ability. These two early humans clearly excelled at very different things. Homo habilis had a tool for everything, while Paranthropus boise just wanted to eat everything. Who is going to be more adaptable to change? Homo habilis, because this early human can rely on their tool-making abilities to solve problems. Paranthropus boise was likely well adapted to eating tough foods such as nuts, seeds, and tubers, but simply being skilled at eating tough food does not place him in a more strategic position than creating tools which can pulverize tough foods. Homo habilis is more likely to survive because he can use tools to modify any foods which are challenging. The food that we use to fuel our bodies has a direct impact on how we perform. It is important to analyze how the diet of the early humans contributed to their ability to survive. Paranthropus boise ate tough foods like roots and nuts, but Homo habilis ate leaves, plants, and some animal tissues. Homo habilis ate some meat, but Paranthropus boise did not. This means two things. First, Homo habilis had a more complex diet, meaning that he could eat a greater variety of food if food is scarce, which in turn implies that he won't likely go hungry. Second, Homo habilis, if he is eating meat, means that he is more of a predator than prey. This means that he already has a survival instinct built into him that maybe Paranthropus boise does not. If Paranthropus boise avoids eating meat, then this might be an indication that he is not as competitive, fierce, or capable. This then implies that Homo habilis is more skilled at food sourcing and has more of a survival instinct. Homo habilis has both fight or flight reactions, but Paranthropus boise only has flight. A species that is not willing to do whatever it takes to survive will not live. If size really mattered, the elephant would be king of the jungle. It is well known that some of the world's largest creatures are not meat eaters. Some of the biggest animals to walk our planet are not predators. Size does not always matter. It is important to examine how the two early humans are physically different. Homo habilis has a bigger brain, 36 to 43 cubic inches, compared to Paranthropus boise, 29 to 33 cubic inches. Homo habilis has a smaller build, 71 pounds, compared to Paranthropus boise, 75 to 108 pounds. Homo habilis was much smaller, 3 foot 3 inches, compared to Paranthropus boise, 4 foot 6 inches. This means that Homo habilis had a bigger brain, while Paranthropus boise had a bigger body. This means that Homo habilis was smarter and probably in a better position to hunt or challenge Paranthropus boise, who was physically bigger but not able to outsmart Homo habilis. Homo habilis' smaller stature enabled him to act more as a hunter and use his increased brain size and ability to outthink Paranthropus boise. Bigger is not always better. When we compare Homo habilis to Paranthropus boise, we are effectively comparing the portrait of a scavenger-hunter with that of a gentle herbivore. Homo habilis used and created an impressive variety of tools that allowed him to adapt to any environment. On the other hand, Paranthropus boise was able to eat tougher foods, but was not able to use this skill to out-eat Homo habilis. Rather, Homo habilis seems to have out-eaten Paranthropus boise by consuming meat, thus allowing his energy-consuming brain to grow. Homo habilis had a brain that was almost 25% larger than Paranthropus boise, giving them the ability to mentally adapt to any new conditions or changes. Ultimately, Homo habilis was better suited to his environment to survive and evolve. Homo habilis likely had more sophisticated tools, a more robust diet, and was smarter. Paranthropus boise simply was not able to compete and survive. This leads us to ponder the following questions. What happened to Homo habilis and Paranthropus boise? Did they combine to evolve into Homo erectus? Or was only one of them adaptable enough to survive and evolve, while the other faded into existence some 1.3 million years ago? So, hopefully this one is a little bit clearer, especially when we compare this one to our emerging essay. This emerging essay is more of just like a confusing paragraph. The extending one is more of a structured 5-body paragraph essay. So again, what makes this different from the proficient essay? This has more style, and it has more meat to it. It's just got simply more explanations, more arguments. It starts with a quote up here, which kind of sets the tone. It's got a quote down here, which sets the tone. We've got very specific examples, and they're explained thoroughly. So again, hopefully this makes sense. And if you can achieve the proficient, if you're in grade 6 and 7, then this is fabulous. This is where we're at. If you happen to do that extra, stuff that gets you to the extending, then that's fabulous. But this is where we all hopefully can be in grade 6 and 7 with a compare contrast essay. And keeping in mind, I actually had probably too much compare. I probably should have had, or too much contrast. I should have had a little bit more comparing, like how are they similar? But I wanted to, otherwise I could just write essays for pages and pages. I needed to keep this kind of short. But if I were to go back and change something, I would outline maybe more similarities. But there we are. All right, good luck.